Welcome back. You are watching Global Eye. In what could cast a shadow over India-US diplomatic ties, American prosecutors have charged an Indian national in connection with an assassination plot against a Sikh separatist leader. Further, America says that an Indian government official was directing the plot. US has refrained from sharing the name of the intended target and only highlighted that the person in question is a US citizen who runs a pro-Khalistani organization that has been banned by India. Now, this comes days after reports indicated that US authorities foiled a murder plot against Gurpatwant Singh Pann, head of the Sikhs for Justice organization in the US. The organization was banned in India in 2019. India has responded to the charges, saying that the allegations raised by America are a matter of concern. MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that such acts are contrary to Indian government policy. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has also responded to the indictment, saying he has raised the issue with top Indian government officials.
Finally, with regard to India, first, this is an ongoing legal matter, so you'll understand I can't comment on it in detail. I can say that this is something we take very seriously. A number of us have raised this directly with the Indian government in past weeks. The government announced today that it was conducting an investigation, and that's good and appropriate, and we look forward to seeing the results.
We're now joined by Arun Singh, former Indian ambassador to the United States. Ambassador Singh, thank you very much for being with us. How do you think this issue is going to affect India-US relations, the momentum that we have seen over the last few years?
No, I'm confident that it will not impact really on the momentum. I mean, there is a temporary blip that the two sides will handle. And as you see, the way they've handled it with discretion, with sensitivity. US has said, from their perspective, that they've shared whatever information, intelligence they have with the Indian side. And from India, the response, as you indicated, is that they take the allegations seriously, and that a high-level committee has been set up to investigate, and that it is not government policy, the kind of action that has been mentioned in the indictment. So I do get a sense that both are trying to handle the differences that challenges related to that have arisen in a mature, sensitive manner. But having said that, again, Parikshit, you should keep in mind that at this stage it is only an indictment. It's not a conviction. So now the information will be brought before US courts. And in many cases, US courts have thrown out indictments, saying that there's not sufficient evidence. So let us see how this plays out. And I think basically everyone concerned, the governments and in the wider community, there's a need to handle it with discretion in a quiet and effective manner.
I'd also like to ask you about the NIA case against Gurpatwant Singh Pann for allegedly making out a threat in a video where he said that Sikhs should not travel by Air India, otherwise their lives would be under threat. India has registered a case with regard to that. There is also contemplation of seeking his extradition from the United States. Do you feel that somehow India, with the evidence it has against Gurpatwant Singh Pann since 2019, make a strong case to understand, to make the US understand where it's coming from?
So I'm sure the Indian government will put together whatever information it has and pursue also with the US authorities and whatever is the judicial process that they may decide to embark upon. But that having been said, I think the US authorities and generally others in the West must be sensitive to concerns related to terrorism in other countries. You know, before 9/11, the US and others made a distinction between what they described as global terrorists, I mean, those who were targeting the West, and those they described as local terrorists, only targeting countries in the region where they were operating. And they didn't pay much attention to the challenges from local, what they said were local terrorists. After 9/11, they came to the conclusion that global terrorists and local terrorists have a symbiotic relationship. One set provides ideology, funding, weapons to the other, and the others provides logistic support. Al-Qaeda, for example, in Afghanistan, was getting logistic support from Lashkar-e-Toiba and other Pakistan-based terrorist groups that the US otherwise described as local terrorists. So I think in the US, Canada, and other countries, there needs to be continued and far more sensitivity to terrorism-related concerns in other countries, groups that are resorting to terrorism to target other societies and countries, and not just Western societies and countries. And I remember, Hillary Clinton, when she had visited Pakistan, for example, she had said that you can't expect to raise snakes in your backyard and not expect that they will bite you. So these kind of groups eventually operating from Western soil will have a negative impact also on Western societies. So they need to be sensitive to that.
Ambassador Arun Singh, what are India's options at this stage, considering there are court documents? The US Attorney's Office has filed charges, announced charges against an Indian national and said on record that there was an Indian government employee directing this assassination attempt from Indian soil against a Khalistani separatist on American soil. Now that this amount of information is in public domain, what are India's options right now?
Look, India has always said that it has received some information about those involved, a nexus between drug traffickers, organized crime, gun runners, and others. And whatever is there mentioned in the indictment, a suggestion of any link to government official is not Indian government policy, and that they have set up a committee. But eventually, you have to let the court process play out. And as I mentioned to you earlier, very often indictments that the US justice system brings to courts are thrown out by courts, that there's not enough evidence here. And if you, for example, look at the US, in Guantanamo Bay, they had put a large number of prisoners there before no charges were brought up against them. And many of them were eventually found to be not guilty and had to be released after being kept in prison for 10 years, 15 years. So there are flaws in the US investigative and judicial system. Large number of people in the US, for example, have been convicted under false charges, and later the convictions were overturned. A large number of people who've been double agents have given wrong information for their own benefit. So we have to see, let this process play out. Right. And I think the important thing is for the two governments to work together to handle it in a cooperative way.
All right. Ambassador Arun Singh, thank you very much for joining us. So you are saying that the legal process in the US should be allowed to proceed and get over, and only then we should weigh our options. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. News continues on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned.